Okay, aloha. I am back again for my Pieces of the Puzzle podcast series where I interview my clients who are champions about what are 3 to 5 things that they feel have helped them achieve their goals. And I'm so happy to welcome Trenten Merrill, champion long jumper. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and it's been a cool journey working with you and trying to see all the little angles that I can get better because we know that you can get 1% better every day, and it's those 1% better every day that leads to great victories.
I'm so glad you said that because I think sometimes things can be like really overwhelming to people and they think like, how do I even start? Or I started and it's not working for me or something like that. And they can get really discouraged really easily. My particular target market for inspiring people is people over 40 who are looking to start sprinting. And I just feel like sometimes it can be overwhelming if you look at the big picture, but if you do look at those little things and maybe just make those choices every day of the little things, it can be less daunting than the whole entire, we'll say, puzzle, right? So
Sure.
in order to achieve your goals, you have to have the full puzzle, but there are all these little pieces that make up that puzzle, and there are so many because listen, I'm just going to let everybody know you and I have some really kick-ass conversations.
We do. We
Yeah,
do.
so Trenton is extremely smart at researching and knowing intuitively how his body works and how really all bodies work and what works best for optimal performance. And we have some really amazing scientifical and like conversations about questions that come up and all kinds of things. So I'm just going to start again by just saying, okay, what is what is one, it doesn't have to be your number one, but what is one piece of the puzzle that you feel has helped you achieve your goals? And go ahead and tell us what goals you've achieved because I didn't even get to brag on you.
Okay. I'd say one of the biggest goals was overcoming adversity of losing my right foot when I was 14 years old. I have a prosthetic leg, and I'll just show the camera right here. I'll take it off real quick. So I have that, and overcoming that and getting back into sports in high school, and then becoming a Team USA Paralympic long jumper and sprinter. I've sprinted for a lot of years, and I've achieved a few medals. A few of those are a 4x1 100-meter silver medal at World Champs, a bronze medal in long jump at World Champs, Pan American Games gold medal, and the Tokyo Paralympic Games bronze medal as well. So I think
And
that's
you were
probably been
our national champion in long jump last year, weren't you?
not this last not this year, but yeah, last
Yeah,
year and the
last
previous
year. Yeah.
years. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think 6 or 7 national time or national champion in long jump.
Six or
Um,
seven times national champion. That's amazing. I mean, all those other ones at the world level are great too, but that's just wow, consistency.
yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. So I'd say probably one of the biggest goals was overcoming adversity of now having disability and then getting back into sports because I was always competitive.
Wow, that's like mentally got to be so challenging. I can't even imagine at 14 years old, like just, like as a male, well, as a female too, but as a male, especially you're developing and you're gaining your confidence at that age. You're trying to figure out who you are. Like what mentally, was there anything in particular that helped you overcome that? And I actually have a side question. I hope you don't mind me asking.
No, not at all.
I believe you had a dirt bike accident. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was on a little dirt bike, and it was my best friend and I, and we were just crossing the street to go to his house. And on one side of the road is all like horse stables and a creek, and on the other side is houses. And we had crossed the street dozens of times on skateboards, walking, running, bicycles, razor scooters. And this one time was just on a little dirt bike, which we call a pit bike. We had built a little pit bike track in his front yard, and this one day we're at the crosswalk area, and we look both ways. We don't see any cars coming. But the thing is, we didn't see this car coming. The car didn't see us because in the center median was these tall bushes that weren't trimmed and these trees that came down, so it created a wall. So we started crossing, and right as we got in the other lane, we got nailed by a car. I remember seeing the front bumper of a white BMW, woke up on the side of the road, And I thought it was a crazy dream. And then I saw my friend crying and screaming, and his face was all bloody. And I realized this wasn't a dream, it was reality.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Just like, oh, deep breath. Like I have two boys and I'm always trying to keep them safe. And one of mom's rules, by the way, is no dirt bikes. I'm okay with a four-wheeler, maybe in the, like on a ranch, but so like I just can't imagine the severe trauma of that and then like having to mentally overcome that. I mean, physically, of course, yes, like that is a challenge, but I would imagine that mentally that had to be harder. Did it take a long time?
I would say for sure. So, like, I was in the hospital for a month and a half. I thought we were going to save my foot. And then I realized that about a month and a half when the doctor came in, he performed a test on my foot and he looked at my mom and said, "Hey, Denise, can I talk to you outside?" And I saw within his facial expressions an emotion of concern. And I looked through a little rectangle window and I saw my mom just bawling, crying. And that's when I realized that I wasn't going to have a green cast and have all my friends sign it when I went back to school. And then like my whole world just flipped upside down because as a kid, I grew up playing soccer and racing motocross. And my dreams was to go pro in one of those. And then I thought that those were all taken away. And I started crying. I started bawling because I thought my dreams taken away. My friend's mom came in. She just started praying over me, and when she prayed over me, I just remember feeling this overwhelming peace and hearing God speak to me. And He said, "I got great plans for you." And I was in a time of desperation and hope. And it was at that moment that I was just like, "God, I got nothing, but if you say so, I believe you." So the doctor came back in. He said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Let's go ahead and amputate it." And so we did amputate it. And then it was um, all these insecurities started coming up of what can I do? And I remember the doctor came in after my amputation. I said, "Hey, like, can I still run? Can I still like play all these sports, ride motorcycles and stuff?" He said, "I don't know." And I was like, "Dude, well, that doesn't help me. That's not very encouraging." And so more insecurities start coming up. And then this Marine came in and he was an amputee and he brought a good looking woman in with him too. And I had more insecurities at that time, and but I saw this buff dude with a prosthetic leg on the same side that mine was amputated as well, and I just asked him the same kind of questions, like, "Can you still run? Can you still ride motorcycles? And can you still date girls?" And he said, "Yes." He's like, "Dude, I still run every morning, and you can too." And he was like, "I still ride motorcycles, so can you." And he's like, "And this is my girlfriend." So I was like, "All right." And it only took
Wow.
one, just one guy to tell me that I can. And so then from that point on, I just I said, don't put any limitations on what I think I can do. Instead, just go try it. And who cares if you like struggle doing it? If you like it enough, then you'll probably learn how to do it. And then going back to school, um, for sure, there was insecurities. Like I wore jeans all throughout high school. When I went to a public school, I transferred schools where all my friends went. But I was really insecure because I didn't like people staring, and I hadn't fully been comfortable in my own skin. But there was still,
Well, I can imagine again, you're at that age, where you're trying to figure out who you are.
for
So
sure,
no one's comfortable in their own skin at that age. And I mean, my trauma wasn't anywhere near yours, but I got bit in the face by a pit bull when I was in seventh grade. And I went to school and I had already been in a car accident where I was scar here. And all the kids called me Al Capone, Scarface Al Capone. Like
that's
they're
a
just,
badass name though. But I'm sure you didn't like it at the time.
in seventh grade. I know it's funny, right? But then it was not funny. And I was in Catholic school. It was seventh grade. It was a small school, and they just were brutal. And it was, of course, obviously a very traumatic experience. I had big scars across my whole face. My whole face was swollen for like months. And I went to transfer to public school in eighth grade. Again, that age where you're just like, coming from Catholic school to public school, like I don't know anybody really. And the two cool girls in my grade, they were the popular ones. They came up to me and they said, "We think that your scars are really cool." And then I was fine.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's
actually, one of those
great.
one of those is still one of my good friends. She actually called me last week to tell me we still have the 4x400 meter record in our high school.
Let's go. I
Yeah,
love
so
that
she's been
story.
my friend ever since then. And like you said, it just takes one person sometimes to tell you that you can or you're okay or you can do it. And I love to tell people that too, about what you said about the struggle. Like it's okay to struggle. Like you don't have to be good at something right off the bat. Like I have opened myself up to pole vault and, as you know, long jump, and like, oh my gosh, I'm like a baby deer hopping into the pit. Like nothing like you. And so but I'm, I might focus on, oh, I'm making a fool of myself because I don't know how to do it, but I'm not. I'm just having fun, and I'm embracing the struggle. So I really want to
Yeah,
encourage people to get out of their comfort zones and embrace the struggle. Um,
totally.
yeah.
I I didn't know that you also transferred from a Catholic school because I did too. So my freshman and sophomore year, I was at a Catholic school, and it was similar experiences. And I wasn't getting along with a lot of kids there, and all my friends that I grew up with were at a public school. And when I transferred, I was like, dude, this is chaos here because it went from really strict to like almost like no rules. But it was so much fun, and everybody ended up finding out that I had a prosthetic, and I ended up competing in wrestling at that school, and I kind of started to slowly embrace who I am. And then there was like a lot of girls that ended up thinking that I was still really attractive, even though I had a prosthetic, and so that was boosting my confidence. And I didn't know that you also transferred too, so it was cool that we can relate on
And
that.
I didn't know that you were a wrestler. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
probably some of the hardest workouts.
oh my gosh, like wrestling, I love my wrestling clients. And also my husband, has been a wrestling coach for 25 years. So we're a wrestling family. I'm a wrestling wife. Like wrestling is our world, just like track is our world. And
Yeah,
and it's just like wrestling is another level. It's kind of like I tell people, it's kind of like you're running a 400 meters all out, and at the 350, when you're starting to break down and you don't even know like what's going to happen because you're everything's starting to go numb, at that moment someone double legs you. that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
wrestling.
yeah, for sure. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's brutal.
that's really cool that you're a wrestler. And so yeah, so you graduated high school, and how did you end up in track and field?
So I was going to community college at Saddleback Community College in Orange County, and the high school I went to was Cabot Valley High School. And when I was at community college, it was the only time in my life when I wasn't in sports, but I was still really competitive. I had a competitive heart, and so I was doing some like jujitsu, Muay Thai stuff, just because it was really fun, and it was still kind of like pouring into that competitive side of like where I could push myself and learn skills and also be humbled. And then the guy that was making my prosthetics invited me to a running clinic, and I went to this running clinic at Irvine College, and I was introduced, or the head coach of the U.S. Paralympic track and field team came up to me and introduced himself. And he said, "Why don't you come over to the like elite running group area?" And so I went over there, and I met two Paralympians, and they put us through a workout. And at the end of it, they're like, "Trent, have you ever thought about trying out for the Paralympic team?" And I said, "Dude, what's the Paralympics?" And they said, "Well, you compete against everybody with your same disability. You compete for Team USA, and you get to travel around the world and you get paid to do it." And I was like, "No way! That sounds too good to be true." So I went home. Coach gave me a card, and I remember just thinking like, "There's no way!" Like whatever. And I was just living my own life, going to the beach, having fun. And then I kept feeling drawn to this card. So one day I picked up the card and I called the coach, and he answered the phone. He said, "Trent, I've been waiting to talk to you." He's like, "We have a Paralympic development camp out in Chula Vista, California, and I want you to come and spend a week down at the Olympic Training Center." And I said, "All right, I'll be there." And so I went there. I remember parking my car and I'm walking to the athlete check-in, and I hear God speak to me, and he says, "I got great plans for you." And I'm like, "No way." And these are the only two times where it was like crazy audible. And it was the same message I had heard in the hospital. So I went down to the track and I saw all these Olympians and Paralympians training. I was like, dude, this is my destiny. This is what I'm meant to do. So that night I had like my Rocky moment. I was doing stadiums. I found stairs and I was running around the whole entire facility just yelling and like calling myself the champ and telling myself I was going to be there. And so I had the direction to go in, and I knew that I had to start training and competing if I wanted to actually make the team. And I was pretty cocky at the time. I thought like, okay, I'm really good at athletics. I'm good at all sports I do, so this is gonna be super easy. And it wasn't. I got humbled really quick, and I remember going out for my first Paralympic or nationals in 2010, and I didn't make finals in the 100 meters. And I was like, okay, we got to really put some work in. And so then I went back to Saddleback Community College. And I went up to the coach during one of their practices, and I walked up to him, introduced myself, and said, "My name is Trenten Merrill, and I want to be on the Paralympic track and field team. Can I train and compete with your team?" And he said, "I'd love to have you. Let's do it." And so then it was kind of like game on, but it was a lot of years of failing and struggling until I ended up getting breakthrough.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to pull out of what, all that you just said. That was just so incredible. Wow, so inspiring, your whole story. But one is that, like you said, it does seem like you have just really embraced failure. And like I think, again, too, people think that it's just easy for people who have good genetics. Like, okay, you have good genetics, you just go out there and win. Like people will look at me and say, oh, okay, you just have good genetics, but they don't know that, I was 20 pounds heavier after my third child. I was running a minute and 30 seconds in my 400, not 57 seconds. So I had to struggle as well, and have failures
Mm.
as well. And you don't just show up and win. Like, nobody does that. And if you do, there's going to be someone at the next level better. Like, I don't know anyone that just shows up and wins at the Olympics, right? Like right
Right.
off the bat. Even Sydney McLaughlin, right? She was 16 when she went to the Olympics, but she I don't believe she won that year. I know I could be wrong actually, but
No, I think she got second.
yeah. So like she had to put in some work and get to where she is today. I guess you would say, even if she was good to start, like, get to where she is today by putting in work. Like, no matter what your genetic level, you have to fail and put in that work. And the second thing is that sounds like one of your pieces of the puzzle is your faith. And I really am totally inspired by you hearing that voice, because I think that, I was always taught that God is within all of us. And for me, I feel like we are closest to God when we are creating, because God is always portrayed as a creator. And you can think of God, I think people can think of God however they want to. Their Hindu God, or, Christian God, however they want to think of, or the source of the universe. Like, there's a lot of different ways to think about God. But within each of us, I think we have that ability to hear that voice, but we probably are closed off a lot of times to not hearing it. And I think
Totally.
it's just really special that at those moments where you had to be feeling something so deep, that you are open in your brain to hearing that voice. Like, that's really incredible and special. So has faith been a big part of your journey and one of your pieces of the puzzle?
100% because like I mentioned, there was a lot of years of failing and struggling. And even when I did make my first national team, and there was still adversity, like right around the corner. And in those times, it was kind of like, well, I firmly believe deep within my heart that this is what I'm called to do. And it was one of those moments like, yes, I was sad when I didn't make teams like for 5 years in a row. And I felt like I should have or I could have. And it was a feeling of failure. And I had to sit down and say, okay, I'm not going to give up. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes, like the hardest workouts. Like I was willing to work harder than I've ever worked before, sacrifice whatever I didn't before, and then also learn and become a better student of the sport. And then I really believe that God was calling me to this, and I wanted it. I wanted it really bad, and I was willing to go the distance. And so faith for sure was a firm foundation because it was a belief that God created me for this, and I was starting to see how I was impacting others around me. Even when I was failing and I didn't make teams, I was seeing how others were inspired by my work ethic. And I thought, dude, you got to do this, not only for yourself, but think about all the other people that'll be positively impacted by when you actually do make it, when you actually do get on the podium and you are on Team USA and you get to travel around the world, because then it's like it's really relatable because a lot of people, like you mentioned, most people don't get success like that. Most people, it's like a little bit of victory, like a little bit of progress and then fail, like a little bit of progress and then fail, a little bit of progress and then fail. But over time, if you look at it, like this is where you started and this is where you are now. And I could always look back and I see times like are progressing. And so I would get encouragement that, okay, I am progressing, but maybe because there was athletes that came in and did reach success and make teams faster than I did. I said, okay, that's their journey. I can't compare myself to them because that's a thief of all joy. I have to embrace that this is my journey, and this is who I am, and then this will be used to also help other people once I do have that established platform.
Wow, just I think that exudes from you too is that the fact that you are so positive all the time and you are always helping other people with your inspiration. I just loved your series on Instagram at the Paralympics this year in Paris. Just oh my gosh, the whole thing just like going around talking to everybody from the different sports with the different disabilities and like trading the pins and just like
Yeah.
I don't know, the whole thing was just so entertaining and funny. I definitely think you needed your own show because it was
Yeah,
just
that would be
so
cool.
inspiring, so positive and inspiring. I loved it, and that
Thank you.
is just who you are. And I feel like, gosh, like do you pray in moments like do you pray like for gratitude, like thank you for giving me what I have? Do you pray for wanting things? Like what are you asking for like in those moments when you're training or when you're showing up at competition? Are you asking for anything from your faith, from God?
Totally. Every day usually. So this kind of hits like one of those bullet points, like one of the things that really helped me succeed. I journal like every day. So my buddy Hunter Woodhall had given me this for Christmas. It's a remarkable. And so every morning I just like I write down like thank you God, and I try to just think of like all the stuff that I could be thankful for, like even if it's a cup of coffee or the sunshine or that I get to train wherever I'm training at, or having a maybe a new prosthetic leg or whatever it is, like you just let your mind go into this moment of gratitude. And what I've been learning over time and experience, and then also right now, is a way to really make the law of attraction or manifestation work is having a heart of positive emotions, because positive emotions have much stronger vibrational waves, and you're
Then
much
as
more
opposed
likely.
so positive emotions as opposed to what are some other common ones that people might be holding, like fear or
Yeah, totally. Fear, discouragement,
negativity?
anger, hatred,
Amen. Mhm.
or a lack, feeling like you're or a loss or something.
Right, like you don't have it instead of you want it, or instead of feeling like you already have it, right? That's one of the hacks that I've seen where you start to create a life where you pretend, that's the right word, that you already have all those things. Um,
Yeah, that's something that I'm learning right now, reading through Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural, is he talks about like if you want something, whether it's new job, relationship, whatever it is, something financially, um, you write it down and you essentially create like what are all the emotions that you would feel if you already had that, and you think about that and you start to feel it. It's just like dreaming, when you dream, you don't know the difference between reality and dreaming because it feels so real. And so it's very similar to that same thing. And when you embrace that, you start living as if you already have that, and you're much more likely to actually receive that. And I believe you will within a certain given time.
yeah, I'm totally on board with that too. And thank you for the book recommendation. We'll definitely have to check that out. Have you ever heard of
Yes.
the author Wayne Dyer? He's a Christian author. Um,
Uh-uh.
he passed away about, oh gosh, maybe 5 years ago. But he's got a really great book. Well, he's got many great books, but my couple favorites are Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life.
Nice.
And the other one is There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And that one in particular, I think changed my life because I was coming out of a divorce from my daughter's dad. And I was feeling that negative vibe, like you felt, is because I was thinking, like almost like a victim, like, why me? Why is this happening? This is not what I wanted. Instead of thinking about what do I want? And so
Yeah,
he basically, oh my gosh, I can't recommend that book enough. Even if you don't feel like you have problems at the moment, which who knows, I don't know, but like there's a spiritual solution to every problem. And like,
totally.
oh my gosh, it just opened my eyes to realizing that I have the power. It's in me
Yeah,
to have
you
the
do.
power to change this. Like I
Yeah,
don't have to be a victim and just accept that I feel a certain way or look a certain way or I'm not this or not that. I can just be that. I can find a
yeah,
way, make a plan, and be that. And that man changed my life with that book. And I moved to Maui. I found my dream guy, because I knew what I wanted at that point. I said, this is
yeah.
what I want. And guess what happened? I opened it. My husband and I opened a bakery a few years after I moved here, and we had a delivery. And guess who it was to? Wayne Dyer. I got
Oh,
to
yeah.
deliver. He ended up going gluten free right before he passed away. He had had some health problems, and so he was starting to realize that nutrition played a part. Unfortunately, too late. But um, so he had his kids had ordered from our gluten free bakery some breads and different things for him, and I got to meet him. And I know
Nice.
we're off on a tangent, but I have to tell you. Okay, so he lived in a condo right in Kaanapali Beach, and they said if he doesn't answer the door, just open the door and go in, which totally blew my mind, you know.
Yeah.
And so there he was, no shirt on. He had just gotten his morning run in because he ran the boardwalk every morning, and he was so exuded positivity. My daughter was with me. He's like gave us sweaty hugs and was like, how do you do it? And meanwhile, like all over the wall, there's this like him and the Dalai Lama, him and this person, him
Wow.
and that person, you know what I mean? Like all the world leaders, basically.
Yeah.
And you know, a very humble home as far as like, yes, it was a condo on the beach, but it was like very warm with like a lot of artifacts from different places in the world and that sort of thing. And he was just I was for the first time in my life after even after living in LA, I was like starstruck and I couldn't even like talk. And my husband was laughing. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world because he's never seen me like that. And
Yeah.
he was asking my daughter about wrestling because my daughter was wrestling at the time. She was a little like 10 years old. And he like put her in a headlock and like, oh my God, it was just so much fun. And he was definitely that person that was the same person that wrote those books. You know, he was
Nice.
authentic and he gave us a bunch of books and things. And we ended up delivering to him like a few times, and it was the same thing every time. He would just get, you would just walk in to his place. It was open, and he'd be out in the balcony or just milling about, and just so welcoming. And I just can't recommend that book and others, Wayne Dyer, Dyer, enough. But it just reminds me of your story with having that positivity and thinking with an open heart. And you know what? I think our plans are not always what are God's plans, right? Because it turns out that when one door closes, I mean, cliche, the other one opens, but that door's not going to open unless your heart is open. Has that
Totally.
happened? Has that kind of happened too?
Yeah, for sure. And I think most people can kind of relate that to like if you've ever been in a relationship where you're like I want to go the distance with this person, I can see it, you know, and trying to map it out. And then it doesn't work out. And you're like, well, I had these plans. But then like um, when time passes and you're in a different state of mind, you're like, oh yeah, like I don't know what I was thinking at the time, you know. But that goes along with a lot of things. Like if you were to ask me as a kid, like if I want a certain tattoo, I probably would like a certain tattoo that I wouldn't have wanted now, you know, or even like the
That's true.
hairstyle, you know, the hairstyle I used to have as a kid versus like now or like maybe in a month or so from now.
Yeah, that's true. All things are transient, really. And I guess I'm thinking about too, um, you ended up you ended up pulling your hamstring at the Olympics this year. And I know that had to have been really discouraging for you, but all I saw was your positivity. Like I know it had to have been mentally challenging, but I just saw the positivity. I saw you connecting with other people. I saw you still saying, hey, you know what? I'm just doing my best. So can you take us through that just for a minute? Like
Yeah.
what you were thinking and how did you get through that moment when you realized, I mean, I know you were having some issues up to that point, and then when you realized like you weren't gonna get that Olympic gold that you know, had wanted, and how do you feel like now about that? If you don't mind me just like needling into your emotions.
No, no, no. I think these are important stories because it helps a lot of people that may be feeling like they're alone or that like, well, this was my goal, this was my plan, and now it doesn't seem like it might be possible. And this year was a really, really challenging year for me, but I thoroughly believe that I remember Francis Chan saying this one time is like, would you rather have I believe it was France Chan. Would you rather have a year where you don't make any progress and you don't get any better, but you don't have any adversity? You know, it's like a just smooth coasting, easy year, whatever. Or would you rather have a year that was really hard and challenging, but at the end of the year, you're so much better than you've ever been in your lifespan? And so anytime I'm going through that, I try to remind myself of that. And as you know, I also bruised my bone like going into trials. And so that was really challenging too. And
Oh, yes. So, if we can explain, this was because you were fitted for a new prosthetic that didn't fit. Is that right? Like, kind of, or am I generalizing too much?
no, you're pretty much, yeah, head on the nail there. So I was testing a new prosthetic socket in Rome, and the prosthetist wanted me to go do some jumps. And at first I felt some distal pain, like the bottom of my tibia, and then it kind of went away as I was like warming up and stuff. And so we did some short approach jumps. We filmed it. We're analyzing the blade and the alignment. And then at the end of it, he's like, "All right, I gotta go." And I said, "Well, I want to keep the blade." He's like, "All right, don't do too much." And of course, like I didn't listen to him, and I was hitting like a bunch of like one, two, boom, one, two, boom, like just practicing my takeoff technique because I knew that with the speed that I have, all I needed to do was perfect my takeoff technique, my penultimate and takeoff angles, and I was going to go flying. And so I had written down goals where I was going to do like 300 of those a day, and whether it was in my walking leg or what. And so I finally had a blade, my new blade, and I was testing it. And then that night, I'm walking to the grocery store, and on the way back, I could feel it felt like the bottom of my skin was being suctioned down. I was like, ah, it stings really bad. And I go home and I'm making food and I'm like, dude, this is really throbbing. So I took off my leg and just swelled up. And I couldn't sleep all night. It was really bad pain. And the next day I couldn't even fit in my prosthetic. It hurt super bad. And so I was on crutches for like 2 weeks while we finished making the socket. And then I go home, I'm like, it's still not better, and I can't fit in the socket. We get an X-ray, and we're like, okay, we still need an MRI. Got an MRI, found that it was a bone bruise. I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? Because I'm going to trials and I only have like 2 weeks though. And so I was talking to like Lakers doctors and stuff. They're like, well, we want to get you to like go up to LA, go see this orthopedic doctor and go see this prosthetist and see if they can change this stuff. I'm like, no, this is going to take too much time. So I called a doctor I knew, and he was the one that ordered me the MRI like that. So that they were doing a long, slow process trying to do their due diligence. But I was like, dude, we're running out of
Like, I
time
don't
here.
have time. I don't have time for,
No.
like, I have to compete in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the doctor
And
had
because
prescribed
what,
me.
just to explain to people, if you don't go to the trials, you don't go
You
to
don't make the team.
Olympics.
No,
Yeah.
you have to show up.
Yeah.
And
So
so the doctor gave me some like prescription anti-inflammatory. So I took that for a little bit until the swelling went down. And each day, like once the swelling went down, I would start to test my walking leg, and then eventually was starting to walk in my different prosthetic long jump blades to see what I could use. And essentially, it came down to I could only use the newest one that he gave me, which now was kind of like a little bit better. And I couldn't fit in any of my old sockets. So I was like, okay, like I can't even choose like which blade I want to do. Like I'm limited, but there's also a blessing in disguise. Because then in the back of my mind, I don't want to second guess. I don't want to think, oh, I should have used this leg to compete in, or I should use this. It was kind of clear, like I can only use this. And it wasn't until the week of trials that I was able to get my first practice in. And my bone was like after that practice, it was pretty sore. But every day leading up, I was like, how can I get 1% better? So I was doing hyperbaric chamber every day. I was doing red light, I was doing sauna, and then I was doing a pool workout. And I was seeing some really good physical results. And then also I was on top of my diet. I was doing the ATP lab, like all the supplements you had suggested for me. And then I was eating a lot of red meat, heart, liver, and bone marrow every single day, and then sweet potatoes. And I was like, all right, I see my body's transforming. Like I'm really fit right now and I'm ready to rock and roll. It's just a matter of is my leg ready? And so I showed up trials and I had did my little pre-meet warm up, and that night I was like, dude, I'm sore. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. We got to compete tomorrow. So then the next day's
eventually
call.
you're just like, nope, shut it down. We're going.
Yeah.
Like,
And I
that's
was like,
what you
God,
tell yourself.
you can do this. Cause for me, I'm like, you know what? This makes the story better. That's what I kept telling myself. This makes the story so much better. Like being triumphant in a state of adversity, like everybody gets inspired by that. And so I was like, why not me? And instead of feeling sorry for myself, I just decided to focus on that. And then when I competed, I was warming up and everything. my first run through in long jump, my socket snaps off the back of my blade. So it snaps right here. So I had two bolts going through it here,
Oh my
snapped
gosh.
off the back of my blade, and I'm laying in the sand, and one of my Paralympic teammates, Jared Wallace, he comes up, gives me my walking leg. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry. And he's like, do you have another leg? I was like, no. And I just remember hearing and feeling the small whisper tell me, like, blessing in disguise. And it was like a really emotional, heightened state where I was like, dude, what am I going to do?
Yeah, because gosh, when you get to that level where you have like one competition that you're training for like 4 years, basically, like it is a heightened state of emotion, like period, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like every main competition is, but especially like the most important couple, which is trials and Paralympics, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was, and, like, there's a camera crew and everyone there. They missed that, and I wish we had it on film because that would've been great. But, I just stayed firm in that belief that, this is a blessing in disguise because I already knew that there was only 3 discretionary slots where an athlete can file for discretionary for the Paralympic track and field team based off, like, something that would have hindered your performance, but you're already a top-ranked athlete. So if it came down to it, you could potentially be chosen, but you never wanna leave it into, like, the coaches or whatever for the team to choose, You wanna make it solidified,
Right,
like.
right. So you had this opportunity to maybe get like this wild card kind of spot for the
Yeah.
this happened to you, but you didn't know for how long.
Yeah, well, they chose the team 2 days later,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, so I sat there and I just decided, you know what? Like, I get to see my competitors compete, like, front row, so I can turn this into positive and, like, watch them, see if I can pick up on little things that they're doing good and make myself better, and so I decided to stay positive, and it was one of those things like, "Dude, it's out of my hands. What is crying gonna do? It's not gonna help me. So I'm gonna just trust and believe that whatever happens, God's gonna use this for a greater story. And so filed for discretionary. We went back to my parents' place in Florida, and we went out on the boat and just got my mind clear and decided just gonna have fun. And then on the way home, um, they had the team announcement meeting, and I got an early flight with my dad to go back home. So I was like, dude, if I make the team either way, I gotta get home and I gotta get ready and I gotta get back into recovery. And then all of a sudden I started getting all these texts like congrats. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, dude, you made it. And I was like, no way. And I was like, dude, let's freaking go. So I was super pumped. And I was like, all right, the grind doesn't stop. We just got to make sure I'm ready to rock and roll come games time. So now fast forward,
And
I
this is like 2 months between the trials and the games.
yes.
About two
Yep.
months.
Yeah, July was the trials and September 4th was when I competed. And so I knew like 2 months is a great amount of time to make some significant improvement.
Mhm.
And I knew that I had a broken socket and I had to get that fixed. So I went back home and I was doing my recovery, and then I hit up my buddy Hunter, and I was like, dude, I need to come out there and see Francois, our prosthetist. He's one of our prosthetists, and I need him to help me fix it. So I went out there and spent the week with him. And then the prosthetist, I gave him my socket, and he just took out the 2 bolts and directly laminated it. And he's like, good luck breaking this one. And
Wow.
yeah, I got in there and I was like, okay, the alignment feels a little bit different, but this is all I got. And so we're gonna embrace it and we're gonna make it happen. And then each day was better and better and better. And then
Do you think that all of your journaling and your training of like keeping your mind positive and keeping your heart in that positivity, do you think that that is what, because what I'm hearing from you is that like you're having an instant reaction of positivity, and that's really hard. Like some people it
yeah,
takes them days or weeks or months to realize, okay, that's not a negative, it's positive. But you're having this like instant reaction. It's almost like you've trained your mind this way. Is it like, do you think it's from that journaling? Like that constant,
definitely journaling helps, no doubt. Journaling absolutely helps because every morning, like you have a choice. What do you want to fill your mind with? What do you want to think about? Do you want to think about the past? Do you want to think
Do
about the
you
future?
like
What do you want to
also
present?
mentally recite that? Like I'm trying to figure out like how did you train your mind this way?
Well, I think it was years of experiencing adversity and finding out what worked. And I found that my friends, for instance, like this is just one example. One of my buddies, he's really athletic, and we both were surfing, and he could for sure be better than I was. But I was just going consistently, and we were both like learning to surf on shorter boards. And I remember one day we're surfing, and every time I would go surf, I just have fun. And I had no expectations. I didn't care how many times I fell, how many waves I caught, because I knew that with time I would get better. And I remember I'm surfing with him, and if he fell off the wave or didn't catch it, he would start slapping the water and like cursing and like being super negative. I'm like, dude, what? Like, why are you doing this? I'm like, you're hindering yourself. Like, if you just relax and had fun, you'd laugh it off, and then you'd be like, "All right, I'm gonna get the next one." And so I kind of picked up on my surroundings too, on what influenced my progress. And it was like just believing that with time I would get better. And so I think that helped. And I
It's just amazing to me that, and I'm taking inspiration from this for sure too. Anytime I hear like some of that negativity or like an obstacle, I guess, I mean, because let's face it, like we all have obstacles in our daily
yeah,
lives. Like anytime I hear that obstacle, like, oh, you know, maybe you can't do it because of this or that, like just shutting that off and turning on the positive, like that's inspiring me to do that for sure.
yeah, for sure. I think like um, you're gonna experience different levels of adversity in your life, right? Like there'll be a point in time where something was challenging before, but then you'll learn how to switch it positively, and that's super easy. But then if you only have those, you really don't experience more growth after that. So I believe that God allows scenarios in your life to, in a sense, like test you to see, like, okay, are you willing to go through the growth that is going to make you better? And adversity really allows you to grow. And like, what happens when you fall off the horse? Get back on. You know, you can sit there and sulk and say, oh, I can't ride horses, or you can keep trying and learn how you can do better. And I think that every time you fall, you can reevaluate, how could I have done that better?
Right. And
And
also what I'm hearing is that it might not be like it's the more the journey than maybe the end goal. Like, yes, of course, everyone wants an Olympic medal, but what about all of the experiences that you've like you didn't get your medal this year, but and you know, I firmly believe you're gonna win a gold medal in the future. But even if you decided not to go that route after a while
mhm,
or something like that, that it you seem to have a great journey anyway, like at that
yeah,
experience in Paris.
for sure, for sure. So I think that I like it is true. It's the journey, not the destination. And I think the destination is great because then you have a goal in mind, you have direction. But who you become in that process is like you have so much impact on all these people around you. But if you're in a negative state and a negative mindset, how many people are you actually helping? And are you helping yourself? And I don't think you are. And like going into the Paralympic Village, I had I went to an international meet. It was a Diamond League meet in Luzon, and I was doing really good leading up to the meet. And then in the competition, in my last warm up jump, I felt my hamstring just get tight, and I was like, okay, it feels like it kind of cramped a little bit. It wasn't anything bad, no sharp pain. And so my coach says, like, how do you feel? I said, I'm gonna just relax a lot more in my run. And so then, I did, and it was a really big jump, and it was a very small foul, and he was like, "Trent, I think you might have just PB'd." He's like, "Unfortunately, it was a really small foul." And I was like, "Okay, well, I felt good because I was really relaxed." And he's like, "All right, on this next one, I want you to move back a little bit." And when I moved back, I was like, "There's something a lot of times that happens on the runways. When you move back, you think subconsciously, I'm gonna push a little more."
Mhm.
And so on the second jump,
Like, yeah, because you don't want to be too far behind. So you're like, I got to give a little extra.
yeah, and in the back, you really wanna have powerful pushes, and so that's what I did. But on the first push off my prosthetic, which I take off on, my hamstring just went like this, and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, let's continue to relax." And then right at takeoff, when I put it down and I was moving through the transition into takeoff, I felt my hamstring just go like this. And then I landed, and it was a really good jump. It was within my top 5 best jumps. And I was getting out of the pit and I was starting to limp. And I was like, yeah, we got to shut it down. And he's like, all right, good. Like, listen to your body because we have the games or we go to the village tomorrow. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, it was just a cramp. Like, it wasn't bad. Like, I'm limping a little bit, but I didn't think that it was a torn hamstring. And so we got through, I got treatment, went into the village, and after a few days of resting, we went back out on the track and I couldn't run. And it was just hurting every time I was cycling. And my coach was like, relax your hamstring, just rebound off the ground, rebound off the ground. But it was the controlling of the blade that was really
Right.
irritating my hamstring.
Yes, I can picture that. Like your muscles are trying to control it.
They are because it's trying to
Yeah,
protect
because
it.
right, because you don't have all the muscles for the whole leg to work together. It has to be isolated to like what you have to try to control
Yeah.
that. So that's like extra pressure basically. And
Yeah.
it's basically a new prosthetic. Like because we've gone through this whole story now, and
Yeah.
this is one of those things you're navigating because it's the nature of your sport right now.
Mhm.
So, and it turns out it wasn't just a crown.
Right. So my coach was like, "Hey, when you get back to the Paralympian village, I want you to go to the polyclinic, which is like the hospital within the village." He's like, "I want you to go see. Well, I want you to go see Team USA doctor." And then so I immediately went to the Team USA doctor, and he started doing an ultrasound, and he's like, "Yep, you have a grade 2 strain, and it's a just a little over 2 centimeter tear in your hamstring." So then I texted my coach, my osteopath. And I think I might have texted you during that time too, and I was just like, "Dude,
Oh yeah, we
what?"
text all the time.
Yeah, and I was for sure like it was like this hope was essentially just taken away right in the moment.
Yeah.
So all these emotions are coming through, and I remember like Hunter Woodhall and Ezra Freck were my suite mates and roommates, and they saw me like looking a little bit down, and they're like, "What's going on, dude?" I said, "Yeah, I just found out that I have a tear in my hamstring," and they're like, "Dude." Like, I'm so sorry you have to go through that, but they're like, dude, if anybody can do it, you can. And you have the perfect team here to do it. And so I was like, let's freaking go, dude. Like, I'm gonna be that guy that despite this adversity right here, I'm gonna make it happen. And so I just kept telling myself that because that's what I want to believe and that's what I want to experience. And I want to be that guy. I wanna have that superhero moment where all these things are trying to knock you down and you're at rock bottom, but somehow, some way, by the will in your heart, you make it to the top. So I had a good conversation with my coach, and then he's like, "Let's get an MRI." So I did the next day, and it was confirmed again. And then it was like, "Okay, what can we do now?" And so my coach is really smart. He's out of Rome, and he was like, "See if they have a tech arm machine." And Team USA didn't have it. All these other countries didn't have it. And I went to the polyclinic, and when I got the MRI, I was like, "Do you guys have a tech arm machine?" And at this point in time, I had like lost hope. I was like, "Dude, no one's got it. Like, I'm tired of going around asking people."
What kind of machine is that?
I'm not sure how to describe it, but it looks like an ultrasound machine, but it's made in the US and it stimulates healing. A lot of soccer teams use it. A
Yeah.
lot of NFL teams use it as
Like
well.
electrostim, sort of?
Sort of, yeah. So it can get hot and it can get cold too, but it stimulates the healing process, and I think maybe the like stem cell recruitment within that area.
Nice.
Like, yeah, I'd have to do a little more research, but I walk to the polyclinic kind of with my head down. I go in there. I'm like, "Do you guys have any tech R machines?" They're like, "We have three." And I was like, "No way!" And he's like, "Yeah, what's going on?" I was like, "Well, I got it. Here's my MRI results. Like, I got a torn hamstring, and I compete in 2 weeks." And he's like, "Trenton," he's like, "We're gonna help you, and you can come here as many times as you want to use it, and we'll be here for you." And I was like, "No way." So it was like a hope of inspiration, and I was like, "Dude, let's freaking go, dude." So I'm like, I'm going back, and it's like opening ceremonies night, so I'm like rushing to get my outfit on, and then it was just a switch of like positivity of like, there's a little bit of hope, and that's all I needed was just a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel to see. And so then I just kept telling myself, you know what? Just try to get better every day. Show up to the polyclinic, do everything they're asking you, do the bike workouts that my coach is asking me to do, and just work your ass off and put yourself in the best position to succeed, and then whatever results happen. But it was a lot of praying, and it was a lot of journaling, and just telling myself that I'm the champion and that I'm healing and manifesting all these things, and then just choosing to believe that, dude, this is the perfect opportunity for God to use me because I have all this adversity. And so I was like, dude, for sure, God's gonna use me, and I'm gonna somehow make my way on the podium. And went into the comp, and this is the first day now I'm on my leg, and so I was really relaxed. And I was like, okay, cool, getting through drills, I'm feeling better and better. And then we get to the runway, and we do 2 sprints, and I was like, okay, like I started to feel the hamstring a little bit. I do one run through, my coach was like, that was really good. He's like, do the exact same thing. And he's like, if, I was like, should I do one more? He's like, whatever you feel, but we want to make sure we save everything for the competition. I was like, well, that was good. Let's just end on that. So then we have the announcements. We like kind of wait a while, and then the competition starts, and then the arousal starts, and like I got teammates like, come on, Trent, like let's go. And then I kind of fell out of what my coach told me to do, is like staying real relaxed. And then I started to force it. And on the first jump, felt my hamstring get tight. And he's like, how do you feel? I was like, hamstring's tight. And I fouled that jump. And he's like, okay, can you do another? I was like, yeah. So we do another. And then this time my hamstring popped at takeoff. I was like, oh, that hurt. But I still had this fire inside of me. And I knew I only had one jump left. But realistically, everybody in the polyclinic and my coach was like, you got one chance, one opportunity. It's the first jump. So I was like, dude, I'm digging deep here, but I'm going to try. And got the clap going, tried to get my arousal up, and he's like, dude, just do left leg pushes. Don't worry about your right leg.
Oh yeah.
And so I was doing that, and then just didn't. It was really painful running down the run through or runway, and I wasn't able to qualify for finals. And even still, it was like, dude, my hamstring was, I tore it even worse in that second jump. And
Oh
then,
no.
like, man, that was a tough pill to swallow because you build up all these emotions, and this is where a lot of people say, like, maybe you shouldn't say that you're gonna win a gold medal, that you're gonna win champion, or you shouldn't
So
say all these,
what's the other option? To say that you won't, then you never will.
right? Or
Get
just
it,
like,
like,
you
to the
know,
full story, I'm thinking, like, yeah, you could have been not even showing up to the competition. You could have been in your room sulking. You could have been, I mean, I know athletes that didn't make the Olympic team that just shut down for weeks and cried and didn't even come out in public. You know what I mean? Like, that
yeah,
it definitely didn't help them through their journey.
no, and everybody has to, like, there is a time when you need to, like, allow emotions to come through, because I think it's part of a healing process. But it's like, how long do you stay in a lost mindset? And I think it's human nature to experience emotions, and I think it's important to communicate that with your trusted circle. But at some point, and really quickly, ideally, you want to flip the switch of what can I do, instead of what did I miss out on, what can I do. And from my experience, one of the hardest things was really believing that God chose me, and that all these adversities were leading up to me becoming the Paralympic champion and doing something absolutely incredible and having this incredible testimony to share with other people. And that's just not what happened. And I had to accept that, and that was really tough. But that's part of the journey. And there's so many athletes that have been the greatest in the world, that went to the championships in whatever sport it was, and failed and lost. They have experienced that feeling. So I said, okay, if this is who I want to be, I have to be willing to accept the losses. I have to be willing to accept failing and losing at the highest level if I also want to accept a gold medal at the highest level. If I want to achieve even a world record in long jump, I have to be willing to be okay that it might not work out that way. But that's a
Right,
risk
and
reward.
maybe just take from it the learning experience, which for me, reading that pattern is that it's hard when you have a prosthetic and you have to get new ones and get fitted and all the different, muscles that have to work with it. And I mean, to me, that's what the pattern is that like figuring that out is one of your pieces that other people might not have to deal with, which is a huge adversity, to deal with. And like, it's just part of learning just how you would learn the technique of the long jump, right? It's learning that
Sure.
you, if you get something new, it has to be properly fitted. If it next time I know if it doesn't properly fit, you're not going to do 300 or
Yeah.
try to do 300 drills on it. If it hurts the first time, you're going to say, oh, I remember, don't do it
Yeah.
200 more times because
Yeah, for
it'll
sure.
bruise my bone and, that kind of thing. So I feel like you probably just like learned a lot for your growth. And the thing about you, I would like to also point out is that I feel like you're obsessive about detail in a great way. Like not obsessive in a bad way at all. Like to me, like you're always breaking down the best possible way to do anything, the best possible way to do your sport, the best possible way to live, the best possible way in our relationship, it's the best possible way to fuel your body. So you came to me like, I want to do the best possible way. I know you know how to do it. Let's go. Like, what do I do? I'll do it. You tell me, I'll do it. And you have. Like, you've been so dedicated to your metabolic protocol and, like fueling your body. I mean, whenever I share posts of you on my story, oh my gosh, my coaching colleagues, my strength coaching colleagues and everything are like, damn, he is shredded, shredded. And I'm like, yes, I know. I'm like, I didn't do anything, but you did it all. But I mean, did obviously help you with your, you
You
know,
did.
your recommendations, but you're doing the
Well,
hard
you for
work.
sure did.
But,
And
but
I saw the results.
do you think that getting into that detail, and can you describe some of your detail that you get into with metabolics, like your favorite ways that you feel like helps you get to that shred zone?
The shred zone. Yeah. Well, I experimented
And you
with
have a shirt on today, but ladies, go ahead and look Trenton's Instagram up. You won't be disappointed. Go
thanks.
ahead.
Um, yeah, I had experimented with a lot of diets before I met you because my mom and dad are both into health and fitness. And for me, I saw it as a way to maximize my potential, and nutrition really can switch on and off genes. They can really inhibit or enhance your performance in healing and recovery. So for me, I thought, okay, if I want to be the best, then I have to be willing to learn and experiment and try. And so this year, specifically, I know we've been working for a while, but this year specifically, one of the things that I wanted to do was get blood tests to see what are my hormone levels throughout training, like programs, sessions, and then even with like the diet. How is like what can we do? What can we fine tune? Because I'm at the level right now where it's like little things make a really big difference. And so for me, I was like taking to the next level of being a student of my sport. But as far as like nutrition and timing, I felt like once you find it, then sticking to a routine consistently made dramatic results for me. So talking to you and understanding like, okay, let's just take out like, breads and stuff and grains out of my diet. And I was already kind of doing that with the paleo. And then it was fine tuning like, okay, what fruits to eat and when. And so berries were a big one. And then you were the first person to tell me that like the onset like dermatitis eczema stuff that I was feeling was from a nickel allergy, and nobody else had said that. And I thought, okay, yep, Cynthia's the lady I need to work with. And then we started identifying like, okay, what has nickel in it, what should I avoid, and then maybe start slowly reintroducing. And I had gone from like a paleo diet then to like experimenting with like the $5 big containers of spinach, where I was doing the spinach every single day because I knew that you'd get an anabolic effect from it. And then I was getting all these rashes, and then you kind of hit the nail on the head with the nickel allergy, and I was like, oh my gosh, eliminated it, went away immediately. And then
And
we
you're
were like,
gonna
okay,
get tons of oxalates from eating that much spinach. But you were looking for like that little bit of anabolic effect, which again, like I just did a post about fitness influencers and longevity influencers pushing anabolic helpers. And like I have no interest in them anyway because of side effects, but we can't do that. We're drug tested all the time. We're both drug tested athletes. Like
yeah,
we can't experiment with 7 keto DHEA. Like
Right.
which you can just buy as a supplement over the
Yeah,
counter.
you can. You can buy it like Walgreens or something.
Yeah, and so like you can't mess with you. So we have to find every little like natural way that actually I'm more comfortable with that anyway because I feel like it's a little bit more naturally, organically regulated, I guess. Just like
Sure.
like if you eat a steak, you're getting more bioavailable creatine, carnosine, B12, that sort of thing, rather than supplementing. So you're not going to really overdose on those things. But same thing with the anabolic helpers. Like we're always looking for what is going to just give us that little edge in performance, without, of course, without being too much where it's going to be, well, we can't do anything illegal, but yeah, where it's going to have side effects either.
Yeah,
So,
and I think the
and the
cool thing
spinach
is,
did.
yeah, yeah. Well, I do consume spinach now, just not a massive quantity. But it was an experiment I had trialed before I met you, and something that I had noticed, and so it was really cool that you had some great insight in there. And then it was okay. You kind of gave me the rundown on like what to eat, and then what I kind of found was like, okay, where can I buy these things in? So I started going to Sprouts, and I would buy the ancestral blend of their like bison, venison, and beef that had the heart and liver in there because I knew that heart and liver had so many benefits and it was like it was kind of hidden in there. So you couldn't really taste it. But I'm also extreme. Like I was eating raw liver too. And so
Well, and
I
you're,
just
I think you're one of my clients that loves their bone marrow.
yes,
And I
yes.
love that you do so much bone marrow or bone broth. Sorry, bone broth. Yeah.
I both. So I had found like I had really bad sciatica because I had a herniated disc in my L5S1 and I just remember like a long time ago reading that in like Eastern medicine, if you had a problem with some part of your body, then you consume that of an animal. And so at that time, this is like back in 2020 during COVID, I was just making a lot of bone broth soups. And I was starting to see that I was healing. My back was starting to feel better. And then fast forward, um, I was coming across like Paul Saladino, and like he was giving a ton of information out as well on all these benefits of like organs. And then I had read a book for my dog called The Barf Diet, the biologically appropriate raw foods. And it was all about feeding them like their ancestors, their wolves.
Oh my
And I was like,
gosh, isn't that amazing that that this is like dog food sometimes is healthier than human food?
yeah, so I was feeding my dog really healthy, and I was like, well, I want him to be really strong, and I want him to have like really good hormone levels, and I want his longevity to be really good. And then I was like, dude, why aren't I eating the same stuff? And so then I just started like, okay, where can I source like bone marrow and stuff? And I started like experimenting. Like I found a like a mercado that had like just the canoe cuts, and then I started baking those, and they were super good. And I would just
So
put them
delicious.
on steak. What's
Oh my
that?
gosh, they're so delicious.
They're super good. And then I would take the bones after like getting all the bone marrow out of there, and then I would make bone broth. And I found that there's a top layer of the fat, and I would take that out and I would cook with it, and it made the meat taste so good. And then I would just sip on the bone broth every day. And I was like,
And you became a superhero warrior, basically.
well, the crazy thing is, I started seeing all the striations of my muscles start showing up more, and then I wasn't getting sunburn. And I was like, "This is crazy," because the only thing that I'm fine tuning is my diet. And so
Isn't it wild when we start to figure that out and we're like, where has this information been all my life? Why has no one told me this before? That's how I felt when I started learning all this. Like, what?
for
What are you
sure,
talking about? I don't need to, like, it's not normal to have metabolic diseases. Like, what? You know?
yeah, yeah,
And it's
absolutely,
not nor like you can prevent sunburn with nutrition. What?
that
Like,
was
that's
wild.
so crazy.
It was, and I was experiencing it, and it was kind of like people started noticing it in me before I started noticing myself because like you see yourself every day, so it's really hard to see changes because you're seeing it every day. But people that maybe see you a few times throughout the week, or maybe that hadn't seen me for a few weeks, started commenting on my physique, and I was like, wow, I guess that is true. And I was starting to become aware of it, and I was like, dude, it's absolutely working, and especially in a state of like injury. I was noticing I was maintaining a lot of muscle mass, like lean muscle mass, and like with the diet that you kind of gave me, I was eating so much to where I was like, okay, let's just see because I'm eating a massive amount of food. and I wasn't gaining any excess fat. I was gaining more lean muscle mass. And I thought this was absolutely insane because I was eating to where I was full, but I just kept building muscle.
Right. And you felt better and then you healed and your athletic performances got better.
They were. I continued to get better and I continued to heal. And the biggest thing for me, I'm 34 years old, is how can I train consistently and what's the threshold? Because when you're young, you can go, go, go. Like when I was in high school, I would train before wrestling practice, at wrestling practice, and then after wrestling practice because I had this determination to be the best, but also I was healing a lot faster. I was developing. Now it's okay, how can I maximize recovery and also like performance on the track, and how can I make sure that I can maximize my days and consistently over time, because that's really what's going to give me the gains.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Is that like would you say recovery is one of your pieces of the puzzle and how do you maximize your recovery? I have my favorite methods. What are your favorite methods? And is that one of
I,
your pieces of the puzzle? Because I
yeah,
feel
I
like it
think
is if you just mentioned that. Because yes, as we age, yes, recovery has to be prioritized.
it does. It does for sure. I mean, nutrition 100%. Like that's a main priority because it's like a fuel. It's the fuel for my body, it's the fuel for my cells, and literally like the food becomes my body. So I'm like, okay, like when people
Oh
say
my
you
gosh,
walk away
people
from
don't
meat,
think about that, right? The food becomes your body.
it does. It does. And so I'm like, if I want to be an
Yeah,
animal, I'll eat
you're
animal.
absorbing the amino acids, the nutrients that your body needs, and then you're just getting rid of what it doesn't need. So it is becoming your body. And then what if you're eating so much crap that you don't absorb or that's not good for your feeling, and then you're just like it's what a waste. Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. And I think like, so and it's funny because my generation, so many guys of my age are on like TRT, and that also led to me wanting, okay, well, let me just test my hormone levels and see where I'm at, and just compare and contrast. And the guys that were on TRT, they weren't eating good, and they might have been like lifting and stuff consistently, but they weren't eating good. And sometimes their sleep habits weren't good either. And so I'm like, okay, those two things absolutely impact your hormones. And I want to continue to compete, but I don't want to get on TRT, especially if I don't have to. And so then my blood
Did you
levels can
find that they had any side effects? Because I've seen a lot of side effects with the TRT.
no, no, not that they've reported.
Hmm. They probably
I mean,
haven't said.
well, like, all right, if you get on testosterone in general, like for males, like your testicles are going to shrink a little bit because you're not producing as much testosterone because your body's saying, okay, I have this excess amount of testosterone. I don't need to produce as much anymore. But also your estrogen is going to raise a little bit. So you have to, like, in my opinion, what you
Yeah.
should do is get consistent.
That's why men on steroids also get like man boobs a little bit.
Can. Yeah, you can. So
Yeah,
if you, yeah,
it
and
gets converted to estrogen, aromatases.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so it's you're you're
But
playing with your hormones,
I've seen the enlarged organs as a result of men and women on testosterone.
really. Oh, like
Yeah,
heart?
yeah, all organs. Yep.
Really. So
But
I
heart
know that,
hypertrophy is especially scary because then
yeah,
you're more at risk for cardiac events.
yeah,
So
you
that's
are.
why I'm just really, besides the fact that I could never do it, I don't want to do it because I just don't want any part of those side effects.
Yeah, also if like you don't need it and you can influence your own hormones through like sleep and like training. Like for instance, like if you want to increase your testosterone, one of the stuff that I learned from a really good coach named Dan Path is like I was asking him, I was like, why are we bench pressing if I'm long jumping? Just so I can understand. And he said, well, we want an anabolic, a hormonal effect. So we lift really heavy so you can recruit more motor units and get a testosterone spike, just like when you
That's
squat.
neural training,
Yeah.
compound
And
movements, 100%. My mentor is all about compound movements.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so then it made more sense to me. And I'm like, okay, well, if these things influence your hormones, then we want to keep these things in here. If diet can do it, we want to keep these things in here. And same with
And you
sleep.
sleep, oh my gosh, people do not realize that sleep is like one of the best ways to increase your testosterone.
It is. It absolutely is. And on days that like I remember there was one test I did and it was still my testosterone was still high, but it was the lower of the other tests that I took, and I hadn't had good sleep that day. And they wanted me to fast before because we were doing a DEXA scan, and they were going to do my hormone panel. Like they wanted to do it later. And I'm like, dude, I'm fasting right now. Like the longer I fast, my testosterone is going to go down. We should do this ASAP. And so I pushed for it. So luckily, at least I kind of
Yeah, but
was
you're so
polished.
smart. You know about that. A lot of people don't know that if they do any kind of fasting blood test, it has to be within a certain window. It has to be like, I think it's like 12 to 14 hours. Like if you're pushing 18 to 20 hours, you're going to get different results that are not optimal, actually, because
Right.
your body starts realizing that it's going into, fasting. Now we're starving. We're not just sleeping and recovering. We're starving now. So
Totally.
yeah, so like if anybody's listening, make sure you get your fasting blood test. I believe it's between 12 and 14 hours. Like don't wait till the middle of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. No. I mean, the other thing too is like fat is really good for your hormones. And I remember friends that were like trying to not consume a lot of fat. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, I don't want to gain fat and stuff. I'm like, dude, you're not going to gain fat by eating healthy fat. And that was my experience because the other thing is with the bone broth fat that solidified, I was putting that in a pan and I was cooking my meat in it and I was consuming a lot of it. And then the bone marrow, I was putting on my sweet potatoes. So I was like, let's just see, do I gain more fat? And it wasn't the case. My
Oh,
skin was healthier
you
and I
got
was gaining more
shredded.
lean muscle mass. Yeah. And so I thought that, okay, there's like a misunderstanding on the consumption of fat. And the other thing that I learned was I wasn't consuming any fish, and I had done a blood test, and we had figured out like we were looking at my nutrient profile, and this was like with a company that was like comping my blood tests and stuff, and they went over it and they were like, "How is your omega 3 levels so high, but you don't eat any fish?" I said, "Well, I'm consuming grass-fed bone marrow and grass-fed meat."
That's
And
fascinating. I've actually never heard anyone real life report that before. I've only seen the research on it.
yeah, so I
Other
was
than,
like, "This
like my
makes no
clients
sense."
just generally having good blood work, but they also eat fish. So that's so cool that all the omega-3s from the grass-fed beef showed up in your blood work.
I know. It was incredible, and so I thought, "Okay, well," like, I remember we weren't even taking any fish oils in either, and, so I was like, "Dude, this is pretty sick." So
But
I
also
don't
you are avoiding omega-6 seed oil, so you probably had a really good ratio.
yeah, I wasn't having any seed oils at all,
Right, because you don't need them if you're eating all that really good fats and you're
and
cooking.
I don't want them. I like, anytime I've ever had, like, seed oils, like, you become more mindful of your body when you start cleaning up your diet because they'll say if you go eat dessert or you go like get a cheat meal or whatever, uh, for in my experience, I feel tired after, and I don't like feeling tired until it's time to go to bed because I have all this stuff that I'm trying to do, especially like when I'm in season.
But
I'm
that
trying to,
tired is not from winding down like normal. It's tired from inflammation. That fatigue is coming from inflammation. Yeah,
yeah,
so you want to avoid that.
absolutely. And I don't like taking naps during the day, um, especially if I don't have to, because I want to go, and then all right, when it's time to wind down, shut it off. It's time to wind down. But I'm like, dude, there's only so much time in daylight. Like I want to maximize it.
That's so exciting. You have such a zest for life. Well,
It well, it's more fun too when you have a lot of energy.
oh my gosh, it is. I'm totally that way too. I almost feel like a puppy. Like I'm like 110% on everything, which is like we talked about right before we got on how I was like juggling. I was extreme cleaning my house before I got on because I had this amount of time before I have to do this, and then this amount of time before I have to do that. So like we always have such a busy life, but I like it that way. Like if I do have gaps, then I'm learning how to do something else. So recently for me,
Yeah.
it was the soap making, which do you like your soap, by the way? I sent you some.
Yes. Yes, you did. The coffee soap. I used it
The
the other day.
homemade soap. You got
Yeah.
exfoliate with one side and then smooth
My
on the
mom
other
was so
side.
stoked. She was like, I want some.
Oh, good. I'll send some for your mom. I'm gonna have to make some more. It takes like 8 weeks to cure. So I told my husband today, I have to make more soaps in case so I can give some away for Christmas. He's like,
I just think it's so cool because also the other thing is like we have all these soaps and like deodorants and colognes, candles, all this stuff that are endocrine disruptors that so many athletes have no idea about. Also, it's like we have sponsors for Team USA that give us this stuff, and I'm like, dude,
oh, that's what I was going to ask you. I have one more question for you. And that is, how do you deal with when, say, your teammates are doing something like that, like burning candles or, endocrine disruptors, or like you see them like just pounding donuts and then frustrated? Like, do you tell them? Because I try to stay on the side where I don't tell unless they ask, but sometimes I just can't help it. And I just say like, oh, it'd be better, if you eat some steak, or if you don't burn that candle, or that messes with your hormones or whatever. Like I'll say just like a little comment, like, what do you do? Do you keep it to yourself or do you say something?
well, it depends on the athlete and stuff too. So, fortunately, or I mean, this is by design too. I surround myself with athletes that are always trying to get better, and because that's who I am. And so it's a lot easier to have those conversations. And like at the Paralympic Village, for instance, like some of the guys that were my roommates and suite mates were like Hunter Woodhall and Ezra Freck, and they're very open to that kind of stuff because they have a champion's mindset. And so it's easy conversation to have with them. And a lot of times they're asking me questions. And so it's
Oh yeah, because you have all the info.
I I don't know about all the info, but these guys are smart too. And so sometimes they bring things to the table that I'm like, that's awesome. Or they ask a question that I don't know about. So it gives me an opportunity to learn. But they're never lighting candles. They're never spraying stuff on, and they're more conscious of what they're putting in their body or on their body. And if like if they're using a certain deodorant or a body soap or whatever, like whatever, that's not affecting me. So I'm like, dude, if it doesn't affect me, I'm not gonna say anything. But if like, for instance, if they had a candle, I would say, hey, I don't want a candle in our room, and here's why. And I don't think you should have one kind of, but I would probably be more methodical in a way to bring it in like in an informative conversation where they still have the choice, but thankfully I've never had a time when I was stuck in that.
I had a client that was at the World Championships in Doha, and she texted me, "Oh, what do I do? My roommate bought a scented candle, and I don't know what to do." I said, "You tell her to throw that shit out."
Yeah.
And she did diplomatically say, "Hey, like my metabolic practitioner said that this is not good for my performance." And then her roommate was like, "Oh my gosh, you've been killing it. You've made such leaps and bounds. So absolutely, I will get rid of it." Like, and then that girl had a PR too at her
Let's
meeting.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
could be an opportunity to teach someone too of like, hey, did you know that this is what happens when you do this or whatever, and that kind of also like if they have that champion mindset and a mature attitude, most of the time they're gonna be like, dude, I had no idea. Like, dude, I don't want that. Like, I have these goals in mind. So if I want this goal and it makes sense not to do this, then to get here, it's an easier decision to make. And most athletes at that level are very open to it. And I think the only thing that comes into play with that is like an ego thing or like feeling offended, which can happen too. And because you're like, this is what I do, this is who I am. And if that's who you
I've,
want to be, that's what you want to do.
I've seen masters athletes say like, "Well, I I'm fine eating donuts and pizza. I still win." And then 5 years later, they're like, "Hey, I need to talk to you. I have some questions because I keep getting injured."
Yeah, there's a boiling
And
frog
of
effect.
course, I will not say, "Oh, those donuts and pizza worked well for you, huh?" No, of course, I'm going to be open and be like, "Okay, like I can help you out and answer your question. What are your questions?" And try to be positive about it. But in the
Absolutely.
back of my mind, 5 years ago, I was like, "Those donuts and pizza are not serving you. You might be winning now, but it's just because your telomeres are long enough. Telomeres are the caps on the ends of your DNA, and they're constantly getting chopped off every I'm sorry, chromosomes, yeah. They're constantly getting chopped off every time your cells replicate. So some people's telomeres are longer than others genetically. And so like you'll have one person that can smoke cigarettes for 10 years and they're
Yeah.
still fine, and another person that, you know, eats bad food and smokes 1 year and they look like shit because their telomeres are naturally shorter. But you can lengthen telomeres through different methods, exercise, avoiding sugar, eating red meat. Those are all things that lengthen telomeres, um, which are basically a biomarker for aging. And so, like maybe this guy had longer telomeres to begin with, so he wasn't as affected by that food for longer than say somebody else, because we're all different, right? But eventually
Totally.
it catches up to you, is my belief. And the longer I do this, and the longer, the older the athletes I work with, I see where that type of eating from their 20s even can affect them in their 40s or 50s. And it's never too late to change. I mean, my parents are in their 80s, and 10 years ago they told me, you know what, we're not gonna do anything different. We're just stuck in our ways. And then my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he had two treatments that didn't work. And he said, I'll do anything you say. I'll take anything you say. And he's been on the supplement routine. I specifically target cancer with certain supplements. And his doctor told him, like, I've never seen anything like this in his last checkup. He said, you've been cancer free for 5 years, like you can
Incredible.
actually say cancer free. And
Yeah, that's incredible.
like, and so what if someone was asking me, like, what is your best accomplishment in metabolics? It's, hey, Olympic medals are great, but that's not it. It's having my dad have 5 more years of quality
Absolutely.
life. My mother, got in a car accident years ago where she lost the whole left side of her face and head. And so as a result, she's on anti-seizure medication that gave her terrible diarrhea for years. She didn't want to go out to the store or anything. I hope she doesn't know I'm talking about this on the internet, but it's gonna be fine. She doesn't listen to my podcast. So but yeah, but basically she suffered, and
Yeah.
I was able to, with these supplements, change her life, and that she stopped having it. Like, even the anti-diarrhea medications, the gastroenterologist, she saw so many specialists and they couldn't help her. They kept putting her on different medications that weren't working. And, I changed the way she was eating. I introduced probiotic sodas and, probiotics and fiber and different things, greens, basically, lots of foundational supplements. And like, again, her doctors were like, we can't believe this. She's going to be 85 next year. And we're talking about going to Italy. She's never been to Europe. And, going to Italy for her 85th birthday.
Let's go.
To take her, she's Catholic. So, I was thinking the churches in Rome would be amazing for her. And meanwhile, she didn't, back in the day, she didn't want to go to the grocery store because she was afraid, what would
Mm,
happen if she left the house. So
yeah.
to me, my blessing is that I'm able to help others, and, especially my family, and, other people with their making babies would be secondary to helping my family. I love helping
Totally.
people make babies, but
Talk about infertility rates going through the roof, and it's absolutely incredible. But there's a direct correlation in the food, the processed foods.
yes, and we have so many contaminants in that food.
Yeah.
With glyphosate and the plastics, like there's all kinds of things. So, oh my gosh, like that could be a whole other conversation of infertility. But basically, what I look for, the two main things I look for, yeah, eliminating the processed food, balancing the hormones for both parties, introducing zinc for the men to boost testosterone. That's another great natural way to boost
And
testosterone.
what I learned from you, binding to metals, which I didn't know before
I was
either.
just going to say that. Yes, one of the number one things is making sure the male is heavy metal free. And
Hmm.
so having a nickel allergy is actually one of those things where it could indicate a heavy metal issue. And so detoxifying those heavy metals, you could do a specific chelated program, or you could just start introducing things like a green fruits, a heavy metal free fruits and greens powder, because if it's not heavy metal free, that means that it's giving you heavy metals
Yeah.
instead of soaking them up, because they're very good at soaking them up and getting rid of them. But if they already have them, then you're ingesting them. Does that make sense? Like the same
Yeah.
thing with green teas and sea moss and things like that. So people have to be careful of that. But yeah, those are the main things: the zinc and the heavy metal testing for the males. I've seen it so many times, and they just do that. I usually say take 3 months to clean it up, and then they're able to get pregnant. And it's, gosh, what a blessing that is, right? To help
That's insane.
with life.
Yeah, I might refer one of my friends to you as well because they're having trouble getting pregnant. And in my opinion, I'm like, dude, it's diet. It's diet.
Yes, I would love to be able to help them in the
The,
further.
the other thing too is like you got me on the ATP Lab zinc supplement as well. And the good thing about that, because before, like I used to do like zinc and magnesium because like a ZMA and stuff, and I'm like magnesium's good for sleep, but it's specific magnesiums. And the zinc that ATP Lab has also a good ratio with copper, which you want to
Yes,
make sure is
very
important.
important. Yes, because because they compete for the same receptor. So if you're just having zinc picolinate or something like that, then you could be disrupting your copper levels. Too much copper is not good, but you do need some copper. So I do, ATP is really special company, and I know you and I are both fans. And
Hmm.
but like they are also a blessing because one, my mentor helped establish those formulas. And so I know that they know what they're doing with the formulas.
Hmm.
I look at the ingredients and I see things like Go-To Cola in their collagen and
Yeah,
think, oh, okay, they get it because they're the only fucking ones with Go-To Cola in it. And nobody else is talking about Go-To Cola right now. I'm like, this is the herb of longevity in Chinese medicine. And all of these longevity experts don't even mention it. So you heard it here first. But anyway, but I'm just saying, like, ATP really knows what they're doing with their formulas. And on top of that, I trust them
hmm,
because I am drug tested, you're drug tested. I have so many Olympic clients and professional athletes that are drug tested weekly, and
hmm.
they never fail a drug test because that shit is not contaminated. It's so
Right.
strictly regulated in Canada, specifically within this company, because they are so, I mean, again, like, yeah, they sponsor me and I'm a fan of them, but that's not why. I would not take their sponsorship if I didn't believe in them, you know?
100%.
Yeah,
Same.
and so I have to be able to trust these supplements. One, that they're what says it's in the bottle is in there. Two, they're not going to be contaminated with things that fail drug tests,
Right.
because their creatine is one of the most contaminated supplements in the United States. People will Companies will put um, anabolic helpers that are illegal into creatine so that people have really positive results and they keep buying it and then they fail
Mhm.
drug tests. It's one of the most contaminated supplements. And so the fact that we can like trust this company, I just can't say enough how grateful I am about
Yeah,
this
for
company
sure.
and what they do.
Yeah, I agree. Especially like let's just think of like people in high school and stuff. If they're going to buy creatine and stuff and they're getting these crazy results, but let's just say that it's contaminated. You don't know what's in there unless maybe you get drug tests and you find out. But if there's something that's anabolic in there and then you just stop taking it, the adverse effects can be extremely bad.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm just very grateful, I guess, for ATP and everything that they, are doing with their company. So,
For sure.
okay, well,
100%.
is there anything else that you can think of that is a piece of your puzzle that we didn't touch on? We touched on a lot.
Yeah, we did. We did. I mean, I think we pretty much like touched on a lot as far as like, I mean, recovery. Like one of the things I really like is sauna. I know you're a big fan of sauna as well. Um,
What about ice baths for you?
so I'll do contrast. The ice bath here is like, it is so
Let's just say
cold.
you're at the Olympic Training Center for those that
Yeah, in
don't know.
Colorado.
Yeah.
This thing is so freezing. So, but I
What's the
found that like,
temperature? Like 35?
they said it's at they said it was at 50, but it feels so much colder than all the ice baths that I've ever been in.
Oh my gosh, really? At 50?
But it's so cold though. I don't believe it. But
Get a thermometer and test it.
I should, yeah. But it was good results. Like I used it as contrast. So I was in the sauna for a long time and I was like, all right, I'm dying in here. I'm gonna go hop in the ice bath for 3 minutes and hop back in. And I keep getting this like back spasm. And it was fine. Like the next day, I was like, dude, I feel so much better after doing
Oh my
this.
gosh, it's amazing. I'm a big fan of the 18-minute, especially for women, but the 18-minute lower body ice bath. So not submerging for 3 minutes, but just staying lower body for 18 minutes. I find that I have a longer shiver in that, and I sleep better, and I just have a better recovery without so much shock to the system. But when we had our sauna set up, it's packed away right now, but when we had it set up, I would love to do the contrast as well. Three rounds of 10 minutes in the sauna and then 3 minutes in the ice bath. We would get big like bunch of people, and
It's
Dude,
more fun when you have other people doing it with you too, because
totally.
then
And
you're like
how funny
easily
is
doing
it? Like
that too.
people you think are so tough are such pussies in the ice bath. Have you seen that?
Oh, for sure, for sure. But for sure, you get
Or like
adaptation before you
some of
do it.
these big jujitsu bros, they're all, ew, could crush anyone. They're in the ice bath. They're like, their first ice bath. They're like, ah,
Yeah, well, dude, it is. Yeah,
get
it's a
out.
trick. Your brain's like, I gotta get out of this, you know.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so mentally like it's such a nice mental challenge as well. So
Yeah, one of
I
the
think
things
it's
that
so cute. What? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of the things that I learned earlier this year too was, if I'm having trouble sleeping, because sometimes I get real hot when I'm sleeping, is taking a cold shower before bed. And I don't know what it is, but I sleep really good after it.
That's interesting. A lot of people do that in the morning to wake up, but
I do that in the morning,
yeah,
but doing that at night, here's the other thing. If I take
I don't keep my hot shower on hot at night either. I keep it, but then again, I live in Hawaii, so I'm always
yeah,
warm.
I noticed
My uniform is like exercise clothes and bathing suits. So,
that's true, that's fair.
but yeah, I always keep it less than hot when I go to sleep. I don't know why, right before I go to sleep.
Yeah, I notice a lot of times too, my skin gets dry and like sometimes like I'll get danger for stuff if I start having like hot showers. And so I just noticed because I remember my brother bringing it up one time. And he's like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, "My skin doesn't get dry when I take cold showers." I was like, "No way." And so I was like, I started doing that, and I was like, "Dude, gone. No
That's
more dry
really
skin."
cool. Yeah, and it's I think it's great too how you stay in tune with your body. And I would like to just remind people that just because we're athletes competing at the top of the world doesn't mean that they can't also make those choices for the better 1%. It's like what would you tell
Oh,
people like because we talked about well at this level every little thing is important, but I think it's more than at just this level, don't you think?
yeah. I mean, for me, it's like maximizing potential. So it doesn't matter what arena you're in. You could say your arena is a 9 to 5 desk job, you know. But how do you maximize like your brain capacity, and how do you also stay physically healthy? Because if you're physically hurting, it's a lot harder to mentally concentrate. And so a lot of this is just like what makes me feel like I'm thriving because I like that feeling. I like feeling like an absolute animal to where there's not things limiting me. And I think most people can relate, like, you don't want to feel limited. And so a lot of these decisions is like, how do I recover faster and how do I really enjoy and maximize life? Because I do. I want to maximize life and I want to be able to experience all these really cool things. But this
Right.
is
I think all of your things can apply to everyone. The nutrition, the recovery, the sleep, the exercise, like exercising at maximum capacity or like tackling your day at maximum capacity and then recovering. And then I really like the overcoming with the positivity. These are all lessons that everyone can do in their day. And to become, I always say, to become their superhero warrior self. Because don't we all want to be our superhero warrior selves?
it's true. And you have gene switches that turn on and off with food and emotions. And so if
Right.
you want to
Epigenetics.
maximize, yeah, if you want to maximize your genetics, you have a choice. The power's in your hands. And yes, maybe people have better genetics through adaptations, through their ancestors, through their parents, whatever it is, but it doesn't matter what other people have
That's
because
changed all the time. Right. It's changed all the time. So you can take good genetics and throw them in the trash for the next generation. Or you can take genetics that you're predisposed to certain things and you can change them through nutrition, environment, and lifestyle and that sort of thing. Yeah, epigenetics, the process of changing our genetics, it's absolutely fascinating. And you
it
can
is.
and it's never too late, which is what I was
No,
saying about my parents. My dad, I don't know if I told you this. My dad has agreed to join me at World Championships in March to represent Team USA at age 82.
that's so sick.
He's going to sprint. So I
Yeah.
am so proud of him. I'm so excited. I've been training him, like, we want to you just go slow, stay injury free. But I definitely now know where I get my mom is like the feisty, sassy one. But my dad is now I know where I get my overachieving type of personality. Because I tell him to
Yeah,
do one thing and he does like a little bit extra all the
for
time.
sure. For sure. He's got the animal in him.
Yep, he certainly does. So, and don't ever tell him to not climb up on a ladder to go on the roof or whatever at age 82, because he will tell you like, I'll do whatever I want kind of thing.
Yeah, I can do it.
No, but I'm so proud of him. He's absolutely killing it. And I just want that for everyone, and I want them to have, not just longevity, but really great quality of life for as long as they can. So I hope that they're inspired by your tips today and that I can continue to inspire through, this series. But you've definitely been a big help today. You've gotten into a lot of detail and, sharing your story. So I'm really so grateful to you.
No, thank you. I think this is a lot of fun. These kind of conversations are great because one, anytime you share like your struggles and triumph and like your past, you're reminded of the stuff that you've gone through and overcome. And so for me, like these kind of conversations like are pouring gasoline on the fire to like keep going. So
Yes,
I
oh,
appreciate you.
awesome. Well, I'm just excited for all the great things from you to come as well. And I know everybody else will be following you. I'll tag you when I post this, and following your journey as well. So thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it so much.
Yes, of course. Anytime, Cynthia. I'm looking forward to the next time.
All right.